Hello, everyone, and welcome to Smashbox TV's podcast 452. Sarah Miller, the disc golf guy. Other side of the country from you, Johnny V. Right where I like to be.
You're too
Feels good and
far away,
comfortable here.
Terry. You're too far away. My heart hurts. Not really.
No, it's all right. Trust me. Yes, welcome in, everyone. Tonight, of course, we're going to pretty much get right to things because we got big stuff going on. Our PDGA major just concluded a little over 48 hours ago. And of course, it went down in such incredible fashion. First and foremost, congratulations on the FPO side to, of course, our champion in Kristen Tatar. We obviously reached out to Kristen, and we know she's someone that wins quite often. And we know that she's pulled on in lots of different directions quite often. And she graciously replied to me, as I'm sure she did to many others, saying, I would like to basically soak this in. I'd like to reflect, and it feels a little bit too much sometimes to go on podcast after podcast after podcast and essentially talk about myself. And we know how humble she is and how gracious she is in wins or losses. And so I absolutely understand. I told her that I understood and wanted her to do just that. Make sure she soaks in that victory before she tries to defend her title this upcoming weekend in Jonesboro. So congratulations to Kristen Tatar. And without further ado, I know we had him on a few months ago, and now here he is taking down his first major of his career. And I think right away we're going to welcome to the show this weekend's winner on the MPO side, Isaac Robinson. How you doing, man?
What's up, guys? Doing well. Doing very well.
Has it? I mean,
Isaac,
I was gonna say it's the question we always ask. Has it sunk in? Has it? You didn't just win. You won in a dominant fashion. You didn't really have much to worry about when it came to the end of the round. Obviously, we'll get into a little bit early round. But how do you feel right now? Does it feel a lot different than your Idlewild win?
Yeah, it definitely feels a lot different. I think just having, the title of major, it doesn't sound real. And every time I think about it, there's like this new like excitement of what that title brings and what that means for not only the future of my career in the sport, but also, the impact that I made over the weekend. So it's super exciting, and yeah, I'm just trying to get used to the feeling still.
I think about, and we have stats, we have graphics, we have, talking heads like us and others that talk about things about Calvin Heimberg, one of the best players to not yet win a major. Matty O, who finished in the top, 4 at the World Championships back in 2005, practically guessing not long before you were alive. Matty O, also still relatively young, but the Orams and the Ulibarris, who hasn't won a major in his career, and in the hundreds, plus victories that he has. Kale LaVisca, those are some of the names of these really established superstars, these icons of the game, both older and a little bit younger. And here you are already adding that major to your title. Do you think about, I'll say, the comparison to any of those other players?
I hadn't thought about that until you put it into those words. There's a lot of names that are just absolute legends, and I guess I'm just realizing they don't have a major title. So yeah,
Uh,
I hadn't thought of that. So thank you, Terry.
yeah. Well, it's, and another big storyline from this weekend and every major at this point is someone like Macbeth, who obviously is going for
Mm.
trying to get his 18th. And, at one point we were adding up all the other majors in the field, and they didn't even equal the amount in which he has accumulated. And then we're adding a brand new guy in yourself to it. When you think about a career, what's next for you? What are you concerned about next, if anything?
Yeah, I think as far as my career goes, I just want to be consistent. This year, we've I've been all over the place. Starting out missing the cut at Vegas, definitely a low point, not ideal. And then, these past three tournaments have been, working my way back up into the top 10. And then this past weekend with the win, um, I want to get to a point where I'm consistently in the top 15 every 15 20 every week. Um, and I just want to build that consistency and get used to being able to play at a high level, kind of all the time. So that's kind of my goal moving forward in the year. Obviously, I would love to get some more wins. I want to be chasing that world title. I think those courses play well for my game. Um, the USDGC is one I'm always looking for. So yeah, I have specific ones that I want to win, but I just want to play more consistent throughout the year.
Was it more? I always want to say more special, but you did it in Georgia, where you're from. You're a home state boy. That had to be amazing. You had your family there. Your brother was playing. It was clearly. I don't know if you watched. I don't know if you watched the live at all afterwards, the very end of it, and how we handled it. But you even got stubborn old Tear Bear there to almost shed a tear with having your whole family there to recognize your accomplishment. How did that? Well, first of all, how did it come about that your dad was your caddy? I mean, did he just take the weekend off for you? And then second of all, what was it like to be able to celebrate it with him?
Yeah, I think just the fact, you mentioned it was in Georgia. I have my family there who's from Georgia, people I've grown up playing with, some of the older guys that have taught me how to play disc golf, them being there, college friends being there. It was just incredibly special. It kind of felt like it was meant to be in a sense. Like you just couldn't ask for a more perfect setting, I guess. Um, and as far as like my dad being on my bag, he took off work and came down and volunteered on Thursday. And then after he was done volunteering from 7:30 to my tea time, he came back and caddied for me, which was pretty awesome. And then I had one of my brothers on my bag for the second round, and then my dad finished out the next 2 days. And it was just such a special moment to be able to, on that 18th hole of the last round when I just kind of pitched that putt up. It was so comforting to be able to look back at him, and share that moment with him on the green, before I went and tapped it in. So yeah, it was just couldn't be more perfect, in my opinion.
Speaking of the last putt, you walked up to that putt. We'll say the second to last putt, and you were about to putt, and you stopped, and you turned around and looked at somebody. Did you want to go for that putt, or did you not care? Because you laid it up. I mean, you weren't going to lose no matter what happened. It wasn't like you were risking of hitting and rolling OB. Would you have? I mean, first of all, who did you ask? And second of all, what was the? Why did you? We all know why you laid it up, but go ahead and put it in your own words.
Yeah, so I looked over at Mason Ford because I was just so caught up I wasn't paying attention to who was out. So I was just making sure I was out, and it was my turn to go. Because I wasn't paying attention at that point in time. So yeah, that's on me. But yeah, no, there was no way I was running that putt. I don't think I would have made it if I tried. I was too nervous. And I just light it up, take the second bogey of the tournament, and take those rating points. You know, um, but yeah, it was worth it.
If that would have been your only bogey, would you have still laid it up?
1000%.
Okay, so you didn't care about the bogey
I think
free round, or
no, I think in front of all of those people, um, knowing if I ran that putt, it would just look so stupid if I missed it. So it's better to not even try.
make it look professional. Like, no, I'm meaning to lay this up, guys.
Exactly.
Oh, that's awesome.
Having your dad on the bag and how special it is. Just for a moment, talk about the relationship you do have with your dad and disc golf, and for I think obviously every dad in the world would be proud of that moment, but with you specifically and your brother and your dad and disc golf, how do those all tie together for you guys?
Yeah, my dad was the person who got us started into disc golf, so he's been playing for as long as I can remember. He's the one that pushed us. to succeed. And it wasn't even like pushing us in a bad way. He just always took us out to the park, and we were always playing together. It was something we've built our relationship around. Um, so even, I get done with the tournament, I go back home for a day or two, and we're always playing disc golf. It's just something we do. We talk about it all the time. It's just something that he's passionate about. I'm passionate about it. So being able to share it, that moment on the biggest stage in disc golf in our home state, it was just a super special moment for him. I know he was probably freaked out, um, but he kind of talked to he essentially coached me through the win, um, and through the whole week was just giving me advice and telling me what to do. Um, and yeah, so like I said, I couldn't do it without him, and I 100% believe that. He really kept me going out there.
Have things like big victories, majors, a world championship, have you guys discussed those specifically? I mean, have you as a family, or you and your dad, have you guys said, oh, I would really like to win this, or what do you think? Has your dad ever said, hey, I think you got a really good chance at this event? Or I mean, do you guys like get down to the nitty gritty of like specific events, or is he just kind of a just has this overall blanketing, support that he gives you, and it just doesn't matter? Or do you guys ever like get really analytical? Maybe that's the better question.
Yeah, we do to some extent. We'll look at the courses and kind of be like, oh, well, you play really good out here, and kind of come up with a game plan for the courses. We kind of grew up watching coverage of all these courses, and so being able to play them in person, and for him to be at some of them, he's telling me the smart play to do, and which courses I would play well at. Um, so yeah, we don't go too in depth, but there's a we generally know which courses to how to play them, and USDGC is an example of one where we've been playing that since 2014. So we would know that course inside and out, um, and so we talk about it a lot. Specific holes, specific landing zones, and stuff like that.
Uh, okay, so
So
oh, real quick, Terry. Just real touching on your dad here for a second before we move on. One, are you the favorite son right now? I mean, you have to be, right? I mean, that's got to. I mean,
Ouch.
I mean,
at least for a few days.
he's got seven others to choose, or six others to choose from. So I don't know.
And speaking of favorites, other than the family, does your dad have a favorite player that he likes to watch? Is there someone he's like, oh man, I really enjoy watching this particular person?
Yeah, he's a huge fan of Nate Sexton. Um, I
Mm.
think I think because my dad throws the dart as a putter, and Nate Sexton also
Okay.
throws the dart. So there's been that bond for years.
Okay.
It's so interesting what bonds us all together, and it's not even so much, the Firebird craze, the glow sex and Firebird
Mhm.
craze. It's funny that it's the dart of all discs, which
Yep.
makes it even a little bit more funny. And I guess my
Yep.
my question is not too far from where Johnny's was about being a favorite. Let's just say that your brother Ezra opens up the tournament with a 12 under, and you have a 6 under. Round two, is he on your bag or is he on Ezra's bag?
I think he'd be on my bag only because Ezra is married now, and so his wife would be walking with him
Okay.
as a caddy. I
Okay.
think if Ezra wasn't married, I think it would be, up to Ezra to see if he wanted him there. But I think he would probably be on Ezra's bag.
So this all kind of ties in having so many siblings and going out disc golfing all the time. Is that kind of what ties into your putt? You putt really fast. Like you walk up and just throw it.
Yes.
And I can imagine we kind of jokingly call it mob golf when you get like a more than a five some, that you get up to there and everyone's got to be the first to putt or someone's getting in your way. Because I love you right now. You are my favorite person to cover. You're my favorite person to watch play because I love your putt. It's so casual and fast. Does that tie into it, or is this just something that kind of came out a different way?
Yeah, it definitely does. We've been playing at a fast pace my whole life, so it feels natural. We would go out and we would run the course, just take like 4 discs and we would run between each hole and up the fairways and everything. So yeah, speed has just kind of always been a part of disc golf in my family. Um, and so yeah, that's where my fast style of play comes from. That's where my putt comes from. So yeah, it has to do with how we play the sport and how we approach the course.
So then maybe the less appealing opposite side of that is, how do you deal with slow players, and whether they're the 29.99-second players or they're the 46-second players, what's going on in your head when you're playing on a card with one or more people that are, I mean, let's face it, very few are going to be as fast. That's expected. That's fine.
Hmm.
But how about the truly slower paced players? How do you deal with that mentally?
Yeah, that was the biggest thing for me when I started playing disc golf tournaments when I was about 15 or 16 playing on the pro side. And it was just the slow players. And it took me a couple years to get used to like the pace of play and the waiting. Northwoods Black, you're waiting 30 to 45 minutes on hole 12 to be able to throw. 30 to 45 minutes, I could have played a round and a half back home. So it's just like, how do you pace yourself? How do you get used to that wait time? And it wasn't easy. It took me a good probably 3 or 4 years of playing professional tournaments to finally be comfortable with that. And now I feel like I have a pretty good you know rhythm and a pace on the tournament, and I'm not going as fast as I could be, but I'm not super slow, and I have gotten used to waiting on people to play play the tournament.
Do you ever
So
feel like for
Yeah.
longer holes you should take more time? Because or not longer holes, longer putts, like 40 footers, 50 footers, because
mm.
you're still really quick. We see a lot of players kind of get set and everything like that, but you still just walk up and you know exactly what you do. Do you feel like that hinders your putting game at all? Because it doesn't appear to it from my side.
No, I don't think so. I think usually when other people are putting, I'm already thinking about my putt. So it's something that while I'm not at my lie, I'm assessing everything about my lie while somebody else is going. And so then when I step up, the only thing to aim at, pick a aiming point and, assess the wind one last time and then let it go. Um, so I don't think it hinders me at all. I think it's just part of the rhythm I found out on the course.
You have to be thinking at some point though, like, hurry up and throw. Like, at some point there's a player or a scenario where you're just like, come on, man, just throw, right? Are you thinking that?
We
Be
all
honest.
Oh
do,
yeah,
right?
I mean, I'm not dropping names, but yes.
You, so the last time, as I
Yeah.
said, the last time we had you
Ganondorf.
on, you su-
Yeah, Gannon. Okay. Okay. I mean, I
I wasn't.
wasn't gonna call any names
No
either,
one was
but
gonna.
if
We can call out Gannon.
he's
It's
your friend,
fine.
yeah, we can call him out.
Yeah,
He knows
yeah.
he's slow, so
Yeah,
that's
and
another thing.
He
it's
does.
perfect because if you guys play a practice round, it's like playing with two regular speed people. So we're everyone behind you is set. No big
Exactly.
deal. It all averages out. When we had you on last, you had just signed your 1-year agreement with Prodigy, and I think we had even said this sounds like a bet that you're betting on yourself. How do you feel that bet's gonna pan out for you now?
Yeah, I think to say that this tournament was a life-changing event, I think is pretty accurate. So yeah, I'm looking forward to negotiating a new deal, whether that be with Prodigy or another company in the future. It's nothing but green lights from here, really. And now that I've got this milestone, there's more doors that have been opened, and I look forward to kind of exploring what those opportunities have to offer.
Other than disc manufacturers, have other people reached out to you for sponsoring you now? Like bag companies, hat companies, t-shirt companies, whatever they may be.
Not currently, not that I've seen, but
Okay.
maybe soon.
Is there anything that, yeah, and this is a great opportunity. Is there anything that you feel like you're, I don't want to say missing, but what else could aid you out on the road? Is that specifically a bag company or a dry bag type company or a towel company or shoes, sunglasses, you name it? Is there anything that
Mhm.
you're like, oh yeah, I would definitely entertain that phone call?
Yeah, I mean, a shoe company would be amazing. Um, I love shoes, and I love, getting new shoes, and uh, that would be awesome. Not many people have that, so that would be really cool. Um, a bag company would be great. Uh, as of my contract right
Okay.
now with Prodigy, I have to carry a Prodigy bag, and which
Okay.
is, it's a great bag. But it would be cool to have a sponsor like Grip or Squatch or, you know, any other bag company out there, just to have, you know, represent company and represent them, but also, maybe get that extra bit of money per month would be cool.
Sure.
I want to
Yeah,
talk.
and
Oh, go ahead, Ter.
I just real quickly want to follow up on that. Right now, two of the major players that we see currently in disc golf when it comes to shoes. Of course, we think of Idio, and then I know Nate Heinold is doing a lot
Mhm,
of work with Merrill, and Merrill I think is sponsoring this
mhm.
weekend or was sponsoring this weekend. I think they're going to be doing a lot of stuff with him at his AM Worlds this year, probably the Ledgestone event. So those are two. Obviously, we've had Keen in years past, and there's other possibilities. But yeah, I mean, right now, Idio and Merrill are two maybe front runners, and I would assume you'd have a conversation if either of them gave you a call.
Oh, 100%. Yeah,
Awesome.
definitely.
Okay, go ahead, Johnny.
Let's talk real quick about that final round. You started out slow, and one of your good friends, Silas, did not start out so slow. He went, I think, 11 for 12. Were you aware of what was going on? Because if your dad's your caddy, some players like to check scores. Others just rely on their caddy to kind of be like, you might want to run this one. Were you aware of the situation? I
Mhm.
think he got within 2 strokes at one point.
Yes, so playing on lead card and with a 10-stroke lead, you're not really too worried about chase card. Um, and so I was focused mainly on the players that were I was playing with. And I was kind of keeping relatively close pace with them. And so then I think it was like hole 5 or 6. I checked the scores and I was like, oh my gosh, Silas is kind of shredding. And then it just wouldn't stop. Um, and so and I didn't know he splashed out for ace on 11. That's insane.
Mm.
So like at that, if I had checked the scorecard and seen 11 through 11, I don't know what I would have done, but I was freaking out. I was like, Dad, I'm going to be the one guy to lose not only a 7-stroke lead, but a 10-stroke lead to the guy on the chase card. Um, I was fully prepared to have another chase card victory this year. um, but my dad was able to kind of talk me through that and just be like, look, just play your game, don't get bogeys. The birdies will come eventually. So that was kind of the game plan. Silas was absolutely shredding it. I commented, I told him, I was like, I've never been more scared of somebody because I'd played with him, a couple rounds before, and he just wouldn't miss a gap. He was shredding. So pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't really worried too much until he splashed out on that ace. Like I was like, Isaac still has a pretty good lead. I mean, he still has to make up like 5 strokes or something. And then he splashed down
Mhm.
on an ace, and I was like, Silas is feeling it. Like this could literally turn into something. And at that point, from the production side, Mo yells, "Cue up the chase card!" As we had a big thing about the chase card coming back to win. So the whole control room
Mhm.
got exciting, and you made a really what could have been a walk in the park. You made it a little bit more exciting for everybody. So we appreciate it from the network side, most definitely.
Well, you're welcome. I tried my best.
Yeah, the fact that there was a story that was coming, and with Antela and Conrad, of course, being close to you, and then not expecting to see what Silas was doing, and as you said, nobody's really expecting that. The It
Hmm.
was wild that there was any kind of conversation whatsoever, and
Oh yeah.
now when it's all said and done, you head over to Jonesboro. uh, what changes for you this week? I mean, and you didn't play it last year, right? Were you just getting done with school still?
Yeah, I wasn't able to make it because I had finals that week and a bunch of school I had to do
Okay.
before the end of the semester. So this will be my first time playing Jonesboro, actually.
And you haven't been to the course yet, or have you?
Not yet. I'm going to get there tomorrow and play a practice round.
Okay. Very different from obviously just playing at WR Jackson. people really seem to love this course. They always say it's a thrower's course, but the fairways are 10 times bigger than what we just saw in Georgia. Is it hard to kind of gear up for a tournament after you just won a major, like major accomplishment? Is it hard to gear up for the next Elite Series event the week after?
Yes and no. It's if you're looking to win the next event, it's going to take a lot of mental stamina and strength. And I'm not saying that I'm not looking to win this event, but it's I don't have let's say like high expectations. I'm just going to go out there and I'm going to play my game and just see where it goes. Um, but yeah, but that's part of the challenge of being on tour is whether you win or whether you get top 10 or you don't cash. Like you just have to move on and you have to forget about the week before and focus on the week ahead. So I'm going to try to do that. It's going to be a little bit harder this time. This is a new experience, but looking forward to playing this week. And yeah, it's just part of the tour life that you have to get used to.
So I'm going to put you on the spot just for a second. Gannon won the last major. You've got this major. If you had to pick one of your touring buddies, we'll say Gavin, Alden, Silas, who would you pick to win the next major?
Oh man, that's a tough one. I'd like to see Alden win. I think that would be pretty cool. I think he's playing really good this year. Just consistent, very very level. Um, and I think he has what it takes to take a big one down this year.
Is Alden going over to Europe? Is he?
Yes, we'll be
Okay.
traveling together.
All right. I see, because I'm looking at the registration list for the European Open, and I see your name, but I don't see Alden on here yet. And oh wait, there he is. I'm sorry, my bad. He is on there. All right, perfect. So that's a if
Yeah,
if you can't win, I suppose it'd be all right if you did.
I guess I'll let
What?
him have one.
And again, we're going to let you go here soon because we don't want to keep you too long, and I know you got a lot of stuff going on. But $14,000, nothing to put your nose up at. Obviously, a pretty significant paycheck. Tell us something that you're going to do to spoil yourself with that money. Like a week ago, you weren't going to do blank, but you just won 14 grand. Big or small, what's something you will spoil yourself with an extra 14K in your pocket?
Ooh, that's a great question. Um,
Your own hotel room. Let the other guy
well,
stay. Just
yeah, yeah. Um, I think I'm gonna go out to eat maybe more than I do usually. I want to go to Cracker
Okay.
Barrel. I love Cracker Barrel.
Okay.
It's a great place. Um, so yeah, probably that. But honestly, I'm saving most of it just to I want to buy a house at the end of the season. So most of it's going to be, I'm going to postpone spoiling myself for a long-term goal. So um,
That's
that's
you're
that's
you're a
most of what it'll
wise,
be going
mature
towards.
young man. Okay. I that's a
I'm
very
glad
wise,
somebody thinks so.
responsible thing. Yeah. I I just didn't know. I mean, and maybe it's a pair of shoes, maybe like you said, it's a couple extra times going out to eat or something for the van or whatever. But if you're going to
hmm
squirrel the majority of it away for a long-term investment like a house, then my only follow-up to that quickly is house. Where are you looking, and what kind of land are you going to require that you get?
Oh, I definitely need some room to put some baskets up and probably pour some tea pads. So um,
Mm,
at least a handful of acres. You know, something I can get creative with and maybe carve out a few holes in the woods, have some open ones, and just have a place where family and friends can come and we can toss a disc around and hang out. So
okay. And state of Georgia or not necessarily?
I would like to stay local to Georgia. I have a lot of close friends here, as well as most of my family. So I'd like to keep it close.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, again, we know you're getting pulled in every direction, and we know you still do have to gear up for your event this weekend. So we'd love to give you the floor. Where can people follow you, find you? How can they support you? If you've got a disc coming out to commemorate this, when and where can they get it? Give everybody the whole rundown.
Yeah, well, I want to thank, Prodigy Disc, of course, for the sponsorship, and 1010 Discs as well. Those are my two main sponsors. Um, Prodigy is working on, I think, 3 different discs that'll be commemorating this win. So you can find those online at prodigydisc.com. They should be ready in the next couple days, I hope. And as well as we have some big plans for some team members dropping, I think, this weekend. So keep an eye out for that. It's going to be a lot of team stuff, which will be really cool. Yeah, and you can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and yeah, just keep up with life there. And then, of course, Alden's YouTube channel is where we post a lot of our shenanigans. So follow that for some fun times, hopefully. And yeah.
All right. Well, Isaac, we can't say it enough. It's, I know I opened the show by talking about some of those other incredible competitors that haven't accomplished what you've already done in this relatively short period of time. And your entire family, of course, yourself, you should be proud of yourself, but obviously the rest of the world and your family so deservingly proud of what you accomplished. And you did it in such a commanding fashion, in just a way where, people talked about 30 and 32 under being possibly a hot score. And for you to bogey the last hole and still be pushing 40 under was maybe a bar that we're never going to see matched again. It was just so incredible to watch. So congratulations yet again, and thank you for joining us here tonight.
Thank you guys for having me. It's a blast.
Thanks, Isaac.
All right, man. Thank you. Have a good night. Take
Have
care.
a nice
and
night.
Good luck this weekend.
Thank you. You too.
All right, we'll
See ya.
we'll let Isaac go. I think he said he was in Memphis on his way to Jonesboro, so he was kind enough to stop for us and give us a nice little interview. So thank you, obviously, very much, Isaac. It was a pleasure to watch him walk through that W.R. Jackson course, like to the point where I have never seen somebody do that to that course. We've all seen phenomenal play. Some of the top golf, you and I were fortunate enough to be able to watch Macbeth in 2015 and 2016, 2014, all those years. This event and course, the way he played it was just unreal, honestly.
Yeah, and at a certain point, Doss and I, one of the later nights, maybe it was Saturday night, we're talking, and like, did he in a sense kind of break the course in that, like, how do you create this? Could it be repeatable? The fact that, people talked about 10s and 12s being like hot rounds, which they were. The thing is, he did it multiple days.
3 days in a row.
And it was just, yeah. And people, I just can't say it enough. It seemed like a very consistent message of about 8 under on average. I think Gannon even said in the press conference, he's like, if I have like a 6 or a 7, like that's not so bad, like a 6 or 7 under. The fact that we saw, where Isaac was after the 3 rounds, and then of course his game plan could change up just a tiny bit on the final round with a different circumstance, but the repeatability, whatever that probability was, had to be tiny, because just time and time and time again. And you and I both know, I think a lot of players would say this, and Silas talked to me a little bit about it offline as well one of the days. When you throw a good shot, you throw a great hole, and you're like, yeah, I birdied that. The idea that you have to come there the next day and the next day and the next day, and then somehow you have to kind of remember, but not too much, about throwing the shot well again. To everybody can park a hole. Can you do it 2 times? Can you do it 3 times? Those are the situations that are so tough on a course of that style. And we can say it a million times over. Hole 17, if that doesn't advise his weekend, if that isn't a perfect summation of his weekend, I don't know what is. Right? It was disgusting how well he threw 17 3 separate times.
I'm 4 almost. Like it just it.
Yeah.
I'm literally gobsmacked at this. Just and the funny thing is, he did it without a forehand. Like we saw Kristen Tatar go through that course, and she plays both sides of the pad. So backhand, forehand, she was lights out. As lights out, if not maybe even more almost than Isaac relative to their fields. But Isaac didn't need a forehand for this. Now he has one if he needs it, I'm sure, but you don't see him use it very often. Like not off the tee.
No, we saw him bust it out from time to time. Yeah.
An amazing round with what I don't want to say with what he did, but just how he did it to me is it's something I don't know if we'll see on WR Jackson again. I don't know if or will
exactly what I mean is how could it be done? How can somebody come to this course next year on the exact same course and be like, wow, yeah, 40. Yeah, I'm going to see if I can get to 40 for the weekend. Like nobody's thinking that. Like that's practical or that's anticipated or actually what they expect to do. Mm-hmm. Of course it could happen again. It could happen by none other than Isaac himself, but you don't walk onto that property and think, yeah, if I play well, I should probably leave about 40 under. Just no one's thinking that. And that's it's incredible what he did. So
yeah, I wonder if I wonder if these young guys with as aggressive as they are and as confident as they are and as good as they are, if we're going to see another kind of step in the MPO game over the next 3 to 4 years where WR Jackson isn't as quote unquote hard as it has been in the past for our players. I don't know. We won't know until we see. If we're seeing 35 to 40s for the next 3 years, then maybe that answers our question. But next year, if someone comes out and wins with a 32, we'll know how good Isaac's rounds were. We can say how good they are now, but really history will be the one to kind of tell us.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, he set a bar, and that's kind of what Nate and I were talking about, is did he set a bar that is truly not replicatable or could be duplicated, replicated, or replicated. I don't know. Anyway, either way, let's read through our top 10 finishers on the men's side. Then let's jump over to a conversation on the women's side.
All right, going number 2, Eagle McMahon and Nicholas Antala. Remember, it's Nicholas. There's no O. It's not Nicholas. Just Nicholas.
Let me say this for the 1,000th time. You say Nicholas 100 times over, and to most people's ears, whether you said the O or not, they're going to put it there.
It sounds
and they're
like
going to then yell at you for saying Nicholas. I cannot say this enough, and I understand. We worked very hard to say Nicholas. And when you say Nicholas 100 times, people are still going to think you're saying Nicholas.
And it might be some of a little bit of our Midwestern just popping out with the K and whatnot. But yes, Eagle McMahon and Nicholas Antala tied for second at 35, so 5 behind Isaac. Then we had Silas Schultz, and I'm going to put a side note here, not related to Barry Schultz. Please.
Okay.
Because I've seen...
Was that out there around?
100%. Yeah. I've seen it was on the chat boards, it was on the web boards. It is understandable, but Silas is from a different Schultz family where there's a bunch of Schultzes that play. You've got, Thunder and who else, Terry? There was Silas, Thunder. Esther. That was the other one I was thinking.
Simeon.
So, so a different
Thunder.
Schultz family, for those of you that are wondering. 5th place in a tie was Matty O, who I didn't feel like we saw a ton of Matty O on the broadcast. There was a shot or two, but he just wasn't really in. He shot a 6 down that final round. Tied with Mason Ford, who was on the lead card and shot a 5 down. In 7th place, there was a 4-way tie, and this will round out our top 10, with Aiden Scott, a name that we don't hear as often, so congratulations, Aiden. Chris Clemens, Gannon Burr, and Vino Makala all rounded out your top 10. So we have 2 Europeans in the top 10 with Nicholas and Vino. And we've been saying it for years. Those young guns over from Europe are coming. They're coming. They're showing up for a long time, and even still to this day, we kind of, over here in America, we think, yeah, that's great. We've got the best in the world. But they're showing up, and not far behind them was Una Haninen. He was in 13th. So Linus Carlson just announced yesterday or today that he got his sports visa. He'll be coming over soon. I don't know if he's going to make Jonesboro or not. That might be a little tight for him, but he is registered. There's another name that, it could very well be in your top 10s this upcoming week or next. So just be aware. They're coming. They're coming for America. Look out.
Yeah, and that's not even a Neil Diamond. Well, that is a Neil Diamond song, but
Yeah,
anyway,
it is.
Yeah, and of course, we've seen that on the FPO side for a couple of years, as everybody's known who we have, and now we continue to see more. Not only just the Henna and Evelina and Kristen, Katie has now come over. Anna Sten is now coming over and being more regular here on our card. Heidi Line was over here and may show up for extended periods of time. I think we're going to continue to see more and more. So, yeah, very, very cool. Yeah, they know this is where the action is at. If you want to be on the map and be revered as one of the world's best, here's where you're coming, and you're getting the best competition for that, and putting yourself in front of cameras and whatnot. So yeah, very exciting. And obviously, from way back in the day, whether it was a UC or a Sepu Payu or some of the other players, obviously at one point Simon was a fresher face to us 10 years ago. So it's pretty cool to see, and I think it's just going to become more and more regular on both MPO and FPO. On both sides of it. So congratulations to all the gentlemen. I don't have them in front of me, and Johnny could probably click on the button, but to everyone, top 5, of course, get, so to speak, punch their ticket to be here for next year's Champions Cup. They're already qualified for the Champions Cup. And then there was four people that ultimately also got their USDGC berths, including Silas Schultz. I know was on the top of that list.
Silas,
with his finish and stuff.
Mason, Aiden, Clemens, and I think yeah, those are the 4 that qualified for USDGC here.
Yes, so congrats to them. I know obviously that's a big deal as well, and lots of people like getting that out of the way a little bit earlier. And the last quick thing I'll say about Aiden is it was great because I just met him a couple weeks ago. Snappy Cole, James Cole, claims him as a prodigy of his out of Tennessee. I saw him perform very well in Florida at Tallahassee. The next weekend, I saw him perform very well over at Throwdown the Mountain. And he's another one of those guys, just turned 18 over the weekend. And then we saw what he did. He finishes in the top 10 here at this major. Clearly another one of those names that we can take note of that might be on that up and coming list. And if he's out there playing more, he's shown proven that he's got a lot of great skills. So also to follow it up, because I live and die for comments, but I saw someone post and say that I mispronounced Aiden 100 times and called him Hayden, which same thing. I know his name is Aiden. I've even misspelled it once for an entire broadcast that I put together, but I know it's Aiden. And when you hear me say it, I'm not saying Hayden, but you hear what you want to hear sometimes. And I'm not saying I've never not made a mistake. I still call Simon Eagle and Eagle Simon, and that's the stupidest mix-up in the world. But just know, I know what his name is, and I'm calling him Aiden. That's his name. But it's funny when people want to hear what they want to hear, or they want to be nitpicky and whatever.
And before we move over before we move over to FPO, I don't want to poke the bear at all, but did your heart grow like 2 sizes when he said, "I'm already assessing my lie before I'm even there, so I can putt faster"? I know it's always a bugaboo with you, so I don't know.
That's a good, smart golfer, and
it's
not just so much about winning over my heart and me thinking he's that much smarter. It's just a good, smart golf move. Like, there is so much time often when you're not throwing, and I'm not saying you should be stressing out over your lie and worked up about it and worried about it, and getting anxious over what you're going to do, but yeah, you have some time to think about it. And that's often when you see slow play from MPO and FPO fields, is when players like get to their line. They're like, huh, what do I, like they just started thinking. And it's like, seriously? Like now you have 30 seconds to do your thinking, to mark your lie, to get ready for your throw, to take your practice swings, to change up your equipment, and then throw your freaking disc. You have 30 seconds for all of that. And if you don't start thinking until you get over there, whew, you
You're
see it in
behind.
people's heads too. Like I don't know what they're doing. So yes, I can love and appreciate exactly what he was saying about he's kind of thought about it. Now clearly there's times you need an extra moment or two, and not every lie is the same. I understand that, but think a little bit.
All right, let's move over to FPO. Um, Winning an event here is own Scoggins, because you know what? Kristen Tatar was in her own field. This is it. She
Oh,
Kristen
okay.
Tatar won a different tournament, because I look at the scores and there's no way these are the same scores on the same event as all these other women. There's no way that this can happen. So I'm dubbing Own Scoggins the winner of some event. Kristen Tatar won the PDGA Champions Cup. Own won something else. I don't know any other way to put it. Kristen Tatar was on another level. This was possibly one of the best single FPO tournaments I maybe have ever seen played by a player. The pure, for this type of course where there's a ton of trouble to get into, she rarely did. One bogey she took on the round. Hole 4, round 4. And
Yeah.
amazing. Honestly, just watching her, everything from her touch forehands to her backhands to her forehands to her putting, it didn't matter. Every time I thought she was maybe going to get into a little trouble, she threw a forehand and ended up inside inside the bullseye. And then I'm like, all right, she's not going to miss that. It's just the level of play that she is at right now is a step above the field. And it wouldn't shock me if she didn't miss the podium again this year, the way she's playing. I'm not going to come out and call her winning every single event, because I think that's silly. Everybody has off weeks. But even her
Mm-hmm.
off weeks seem like, is her off week 16 strokes? Because that's what she took Cat Merch by in third place. So it's just the way she's playing is at another level right now. So third place was Cat Merch and Cat Allen. So we had a cat tie, which is funny because in the
Mm-hmm.
MPO, we had a 3-way tie for 20th with Paul's, Omen, Crayons, and
Yep.
Macbeth.
Omen.
So we like to bunch up names here, as well as a third place tie with Haley King. In sixth place, Holland Hanley, who was doing really, really well up until the final round. She was in second place at one point. It looked like, if anyone was going to make a run, or anyone could make a run, even though nobody was going to, at Kristen Tatar, it was going to be Holland. But she just started out that fourth round off. She wasn't hitting her lines and took a couple bogeys in a double and ended up just falling down to sixth place. Seventh place was Jessica Weiss, not the dog that's in the background for Terry. Eighth place.
Oh, Simmer Crown. What are you doing?
Okay, Terry. Do you get treats in your pocket?
No, I don't think so, but
Okay.
holy cow. I mean, I'm in a public park, but I'm just minding my own business, doggy.
And that wasn't any sort of euphemism either. Treats in your pocket.
No.
Seventh place was Jessica Weiss. Eighth place tie was Sarah Hokum and Hannah Bloomroos. 10th place, Ella Hansen. That's your top 10 for FPO. I don't know what we can say about Kristen Tatar other than she played very, very, very well.
Yeah. I mean, uh, clearly there's a couple other side storylines, and I don't even dig too deep into them. One was, first of all, Kristen Tatar smashed it, played damn near flawless golf, awesome. No one's surprised by that. I think maybe that's why it's almost easy to gloss over it, because none of us are surprised. We're like, oh wow, she played nearly flawless and played consistently throughout, made almost every putt, made very few mistakes. Okay, and averaged over 1,000 for all 4 rounds, I think, or at least 3 out of the 4. So no surprises there. And another piece of the storylines where, yeah, who is going to come challenger? Look at Owen Scoggins, this woman that's in her 40s that is taking second place in our majors in the FPO division and finishing on the podium there. And dare I say, I don't think anyone's surprised by that either. If you know, own, or follow any disc golf, you shouldn't be surprised by that at least. Talk about what that means for hitting fairways and making putts, because she's one of the shorter arms in the division. You go to the widely revered W.R. Jackson course, she's hitting fairways and making putts. I'm not going to tell you what the recipe for success is in all of FPO disc golf right now, but I think Own is like cooking up her own batch, and it's just a few feet short of what Kristen Tatar's doing, right? It's insane.
Well, it's funny
So
because if you look
I
at
think about that.
if you look at own stats, they don't look great. Other than, I mean, no one's getting really OBs out there other than practically hole 18. There's one or two other spots where you can go into the creek on was it 13 or something, but 7th in fairway hits, 17th in parked, 12th in circle 1 in regulation, 11th in circle 2 in regulation, 10th in birdies, 13th in C1X putting at 84%, which is still good. 84%, we'd all take that. But it's not like what her normal putting is. Normally, I think she's at like 87 to 92% or something, or like around there. And then 17th in circle 2 putts. But her scrambles, she was second in scrambles. That was key. So when she was off of the fairway at all, or she was able to get up and down. She was able to get there. So ultimately, her scramble game really saved her, because the other things, the rest of her arsenal, I mean, 13th in C1X putting is kind of disappointing for her.
No, that is. That 100% is. I mean, if she's not in the top 3, you're shocked, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I'll have to scale back a little bit for this event. Scale back part of her keys to success being that putting, although it was good. But out of everything you just blurted out at me, I still go back to she finished second and was 10th in birdies, which tells you, obviously, like you just mentioned, how good her scramble game is, how good she is, not only just to save the pars, but her putting and everything else that was doing it for 10th in birdies to finish second. That doesn't even almost sound right. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
To say I got the 10th most amount of birdies in the field, but I finished second. That just says everything to me about scrambling and about limiting and mitigating any of the mistakes you do make. Whether she was piercing the fairways, maybe she wasn't, clearly making every putt, but damn, to finish 10th in birdies and finish second, that to me is crazy. So, and then another quick, note, of course, there's a lot of criticism of Paige Pierce and where she finished, and what people think of where her game is or isn't right now. She wasn't shy in the press conference about being injured. Clearly, it doesn't seem as if the sheer numbers and the health should have even had her playing. Obviously, she still wanted to forge forward and still put forth an effort. She comes up short of cashing. She comes up, 29 strokes or whatever it was short of Kristen. I get all of that. It's a snapshot. She just made an announcement today that she's withdrawing and not going to play in Jonesboro, and so clearly this injury is serious in nature, because Jonesboro, again, a place where you would pick her as one of the more favorite, gives her wider fairways to work with and big distance.
She won. So, I think she won Jonesboro like 4 years in a row from like 2017 to 2021.
Yeah,
Tatar won last year. And I think Kat won the year before. But otherwise, it was the Paige Pierce show.
Exactly. So to know that she's not going to even bother bringing her injury over to Jonesboro. She's going to stand down, probably what she really should have done last weekend. And it is interesting in that she talks about injuries. She says she's not supposed to play through it. She plays through it. She doesn't finish well, even though she said she learned a lot about herself and her body. And then still critics and everybody else wants to jump on her, and you're in a no-win situation, because if she says she doesn't play or she doesn't play, what everyone else that doesn't maybe love or support her would then also say is, oh, she's just scared, she can't hit a fairway, and she doesn't want to even play against Kristen. Like, I mean, we know this is all of our athletes, and even us in media sometimes. No matter what you do, you just simply can't win favor or win in the court of public opinion. So I hope she feels better. I can't imagine. I mean, she said in her post today, she said, I played through the pain, and at some points I was playing anticipating pain, or I was playing, working around the pain. And that's just, we hear a lot of players say that. It's just like standing there, like when you think you're going to hit your hand on a follow through shot, and then all of a sudden you short arm it and the disc doesn't go anywhere near where you want. That's got to be a similar scenario when you're playing with that pain. And I'm not making excuses for her or anything like that either. You just have to wonder, would she have saved herself overall if she just simply would have withdrawn and not been part of the event? Woulda, coulda, shoulda. It's her body, her decisions to make. But in the big picture, that might have been the smarter move.
Dogs, motorcycles. It's great.
Yeah,
Terry.
I know. That's what happens. I couldn't get quite to where I wanted to be stationed for the night. So out here in public parks, just like disc golf, anything goes.
Anything goes.
Public park. So anyway, those are some of the things. For the I don't believe I'm going to say this.
Don't say it. Don't say it.
I'm gonna. You're an asshole. You're a prick, and you're just an absolute piece of crap. If you see an Ella Hansen post and you feel like you need to make some remark to her,
that's not where I thought you were going.
Sexual identity. Well, probably not. But I'm just gonna say it again because it's so old and it's so tiring and it's so disgusting. So I just want to put it out there that you see a post from Ella Hansen or about Ella Hansen, and then your first instinct is to question her sexual identity. I just think you're a piece of shit. Like,
here's what I'll say.
That's it. I'm going to say that bluntly.
By now,
just
Terry, agreed. But by now, we should know that our viewers are better than that.
Of course, ours are.
So
it's not about all the other people.
I know, but our viewers would not do something like that. So we don't need. No, I thought you were going to go off on the Kristen Tatar goat comments. So I thought that's where you were going.
No,
with that.
I won't bother. I won't bother. She's great. She gets a handful more majors. She wins a couple worlds, and then we can have a GOAT conversation. But Valerie and Des and Elaine and Corver and Paige and Kat all can have conversations before Kristen gets there. As dominant as she currently is. And let me just say this then. All of those women I just mentioned destroyed the field for years. The fields were a little smaller. The tournaments weren't broadcast. All of those women I just mentioned have won by double digits multiple times in their career. They've all put together 3 or 4 world championships or 5. If Kristen may get there, but she's not there yet, folks. Like, simmer.
I have a hard time believing at. I'm going to get yelled at for this. At Tatar's.
Oh, by the way, Gannon Burr's not the GOAT either. Gannon's great.
At
but
Tatar's
I'll put Gannon right
age,
next to Kristen.
At Tatar's age, I have a hard time believing she's going to get to the same number of majors that Paige Pierce is. Now, she could go on a run. We've seen in the past with FPO, and I think if you've listened to this podcast long enough, you've probably heard this screed I've gone on. It feels like every few years there's, I don't want to say a handing off of the baton because nobody hands off the baton. It's taken from them. Elaine King was overtaken by JK. Des came out and started beating JK for numerous reasons. She threw further than her, primarily. Des was a far thrower. Val came out and started demolishing the field because Val had a pretty good throw and a really good putt to go with it. Then Paige Pierce shows up and starts beating Val. regularly. And it was Paige and Kat kind of, but this is the Paige era, whether you like it or not. Paige Pierce outdrove the field. And then some. And many men that were playing at the time when in 2010, because Paige has been a far thrower for a long time. So the Paige era, we might be handing off the baton, so to speak, to the Kristen Tatar era. We might see the next 4 to 5 years of a lot of Tatar majors. It truly feels like Kristen's game right now is at a level that is just better than every other FPO player. She doesn't throw the furthest.
Sure.
She's not the best putter on tour. She doesn't necessarily have the best forehand, but you know what? She's got 90% of those, and it's at 90% every time. So it feels like she's the most consistent with her game, and that's, I feel, what the FPO field is really looking at right now. The consistency. So I think Kristen Tatar, and again, we're very early in this. She's only been in the sport for a few years, and she's only been really dominant for the last year or so. We'll wait. But it would not shock me if in 10 years from now, we looked back right now and said, yeah, that was the start of the Kristen Tatar run, whether it's 4 or 5 or 6 years of Tatar. Because right now, that's the way it looks to me, is that the rest of the field has to catch up to her. And the good thing is our sport is growing fast enough where I think it's going to take less time for other women to catch Tatar than it was in the past. Because the fields were so much smaller. You had a smaller pool of women. So when one came out and was so much more dominant, it maybe lasted a little longer. Well, now you've got your Ella Hansons, you've got your Holland Hanleys, you've got, all these new women that are showing up that have this power and this accuracy and this drive. And the best part about it all, they can afford to be out. It's not like the old days where you had Angela Chigfry, who was a great player, but she went to 7 events a year because she couldn't stay on tour because they couldn't afford it. They couldn't, people didn't quit their jobs. We have the level of support now for the FPO field where I think we're going to see women catch up to Tatar faster than we have in the past. And I'm excited for that.
Yeah, it's just, clearly it's a numbers game. And there's never been a question about how good Kristen is.
Oh, no, of course.
Clearly my conversations always revolve around just a longevity. And once that longevity is there, then you can start having more of those types of comments. That's all. I've never 1 second guessed how good she is in any capacity or downplayed how good she is. But 1 or 2 seasons, like we've said, doesn't make you yet the GOAT. The last point I'll make on Kristen specifically is I felt like, obviously, whether it's, again, us in the media, or just pretty much us in the media, largely wanted to continually rehash the story with Kristen and Paige and with Elaine last year. And it felt like every time, because this is the way she's built, she is, this is how focused she is. Every single time anyone even sniffed at the conversation, I felt like she very quickly shut it down and or blatantly ignored it. And I don't think that's media training. I think that's just how she truly feels. And it was funny that even the fans and not all of the media, a lot of the media wanted to continue to drive it home. And it's so funny because it feels like there are thousands of other people far more hung up on it a year later than Kristen herself is. Mm-hmm. And to me, that puts a little bit of more closure. Not that I needed it, because that doesn't matter, but it just feels like a little bit more closure than, and she, she said so much in a post today as well. And I was thinking this days ago, like, she just doesn't even, that conversation is so past her. So I'm glad and I'm happy to see that as well.
And maybe that's another step in her
done and over with.
In her greatness is her ability to focus, her ability to be just there in the moment and forget about what happened in the past. That could be another step that she, is ahead of the field with. It's hard to say, because it's hard to judge anyone's mental game short of watching someone really, like, you can look at Paul McBeth's history and say that guy's got a hell of a strong mental game. He is one of the most clutch players in history. You can look at Kristen Tatar right now and say nothing seems to faze her. So, but
Yeah.
and short of watching someone melt down, it's really hard to judge someone's mental game. Like, how do you judge Silas Schultz's mental game? How do you judge, Gannon Burr's mental game? Probably pretty good. He won a major, but we've also seen him have, not necessarily step up to the plate at certain times. Overall, but when you see it, you know it. Everyone else is kind of in the gray area, in my opinion. So we'll see.
Yeah. And this has been said about Paige. This has been said about other FPO players. Spock just said it on the board. We don't need to have the conversation either of Kristen then going to play with the men because it's somehow not fair or not. Like that's also, and I know that gets regurgitated, and some people are serious and some people aren't. I understand that, but no, our top player shouldn't just go compete with the men because they whoop them and then all of a sudden should be in the MPO division. I'm sorry. That's just a bad take all around.
Yeah, I don't believe that she should.
And it happened. People have said that about Paige when Paige played to the level that she has in the past. People said that about her. Somebody probably said that about Val Jenkins at one point. No, that's not a thing.
It's really funny. I was thinking in the past when I see people, crowning Tatar, whatnot, and I was thinking it would be really fun to watch her play USDGC, Kristen Tatar, because Throw Pink isn't a major. It's too bad that I'm going to put that in quotes, that there's so much money at Throw Pink that it doesn't advantage Kristen at all. I would rather win $8,500 or whatever the winner is going to get, $8,000, $5,000, whatever that number is, than try to play in the MPO field. But looking back at people who are some of the greatest in our sport, Juliana Korver cashed at the USCGC, 37th place. She cashed.
Tying like Todd Branch?
Something like that. In the men's field, the MPO field, which for USCGC was always the men's field, so to speak. But
the only field.
The only field. Yeah, it is the only field. I would love to see Tatar try to cash at USCGC with the way she's playing. The problem is
But why?
It would be fun to watch.
What's the point?
There is none. Because it's because I've only seen one other woman do it. I would love to see it. But the problem is right now, the men's field, if you want to cash at USDGC, you're talking 10-25 golf.
Yeah, for 4 rounds. It's just
and that's not and Tatar's not there.
She's great. It's just not happening.
No, she wouldn't cash, which is why I don't ever foresee it happening. I'm not begging for it. I'm not wanting it, but I just want to remind people that JK cashed at USDGC in a field. So take that for what it's worth.
Yeah, all of that exercise means nothing to me at all. I see what you're saying, but at the same time, it means absolutely nothing to me.
Agreed.
So, all right. What else? Obviously, you're talking about Jonesboro this weekend. You've said it. I would not call you an idiot for saying it again. Having a weekend off maybe after a major like this wouldn't be the craziest thing, or maybe having a silver event after it. It feels like a 4-round major. And again, I'm not even physically out there clearly, but it just feels like, man, it might be a little bit hard to keep like those and I guess maybe not. Maybe some of the competitors are like, you know what? I hit my rhythm in the middle of WR Jackson during round 2, and I'm excited to ride my momentum through 3 rounds of Jonesboro. It just feels to me like, from a sport perspective, it wouldn't be crazy if we had a weekend off from another high level event, a silver event, maybe a fun A tier that's widely loved or respected, sure, but you got to feel like a Jonesboro. Will they feel any kind of minor hangover effect of like it's just not, I don't know, and maybe I'm just crazy in saying that, but.
No, you're not crazy in saying that, because I've said it before that I would like to see it. I just don't think you're going to see a hangover at Jonesboro. All the pros are signed up. Other than Paige, I haven't seen or heard of anyone deciding they're going to drop out. We're still 2 days away, so it could happen. Well, technically, we're almost 1 day away because it's Tuesday night. I don't think they're going to see a hangover, so to speak, but it's yeah. Anyway,
Yeah,
it's
and maybe and again, it's a widely or massively revered course.
mhm.
People love it. It looks beautiful. We've got great signal. Uh, it's a straightforward course. It's not hokey or gimmicky in any way. Everything like it is. It has so many great things going for it. So there's certainly that's just it. There's nothing to take away from it in any sense. It's just from an overall consumption standpoint, player standpoint, those are some of the angles in which I come at it with. And then let's just really quickly touch on another hot topic that is not from the mall. Is there was no secret that the signals were challenged this weekend. You and I have said it a million other places and times in the past. In 2017, when the World Championships was held in Appling, we Smashbox, which was the only real live disc golf entity at the time, with lesser equipment, couldn't pull off enough of a signal to make the event live coverage happen. You fast forward 6 years later, and technology is still challenging our overall broadcast. That's all there is to it. I'll just tell anyone, if you think the DGN doesn't care or isn't trying or hasn't thought of things or hasn't tried other things, that's all inaccurate. Signal, and I'm not here to apologize. I'm not even apologizing for Signal. We're just putting the facts on the table that Signal is challenged. There's very little of it there, and it is what makes for the broadcast in which we got. And of course, no one loves it. I don't love it. No one loves it. But just know it doesn't. If you're posting and saying they just don't care, they're not even trying. They should be doing this, this, and this. You're probably inaccurate. That's what I'll say to that. You're probably not correct
I
with those yes
I made
assessments.
I made a Twitter post that just basically said it really felt good on I don't know, Saturday or Sunday. I think it was Sunday night that I didn't even feel like I needed to respond to people on Reddit regarding the cell signal.
Yeah, I mean,
somebody had gone out and even said when somebody asked like, "Hey, they were even cool about it. Like, why is there an issue here like this?" And somebody was like, "Hey, FYI," and they tagged me. They said, "Go look at his previous posts. You'll understand all of it." And I looked at that and I thought, "Yeah, I don't need to post because we are at," and I'll say this. I don't want to say we because I'm not a DGPT employee. The DGPT is at a level right now where it's honestly as good as you can get for this amount of money because the next step is such a big investment. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, possibly a weekend, depending on what you want to do, in labor and time that it would bankrupt the DGPT if they tried to pull that off every week. Now, there are obviously ideas out there. Everyone has them. But unfortunately, right now, it's just not realistic. So the options are, and people can decide for themselves. You get the quality at WR Jackson that you got. At times it was bad. At times it was decent. A lot of mediocre in the middle. Or you don't get live coverage at all. Those are your options. That's it. There's no other options. Like there's no Starlink, there's no magic satellite, there's no wiring the course. There's reasons why none of that stuff is done. So your options are mediocre cell signal live coverage or none. And maybe maybe some people out there think none is better than what they put out. And that's fine. You can have that opinion. I don't agree with that opinion personally. I would rather see them try and bring us the excitement that we saw, which some people can get over. I understand. Some people can't. And this is exactly why we still have post-production. Because the DGBT understands the limits right now, and putting out post-production is a good alternative. So that's kind of the level that I'm going to address this in the regular show. If we want to talk about something in the after show, if people want to chat, we can. But
if people want to, I'll let them.
Yeah, in the regular show, that's good. That's kind of what we're at right now.
Yeah, and I will say I'm not suggesting uh, people should be excited and happy that things are blurry. Of course, I'm not suggesting that. And again, we're not here to make up excuses or toe any company line. It's a matter of just explaining what the situation is. And you may dislike that, and it may still frustrate you. I understand that. I'm not saying that you can't be frustrated. We're just explaining where we are at. That's what I would say to that. Um, yeah, I don't need to really, like you said, we don't need to talk anymore about it. Is there anything else that does need to get
Hmm.
talked about coming off of a major, heading into another Elite Series event, and then then have a weekend off. I know I'm working post production for an event in South Carolina, but that's about it for our schedule, right? I mean, Jonesboro, and then everybody that's going to be a lot of people head west for a very significant, exhausting West Coast swing.
Yeah, that's honestly what is going to happen. There's not a lot of news right now. I think everyone's just enjoying the celebrations of the victors, whether it's Isaac or Kristen Tatar, and getting ready for Jonesboro. It's honestly, the social media has been pretty quiet. I haven't seen a lot of chatter other than people getting excited, like I said, for Linus Carlson finally getting his sports visa, and hopefully we'll be able to make it over. Other than that, there's a hush, Terry. There's a calm after the storm.
Well, you had, largely you had two not flawless, but nearly flawless players that are very well liked and very deserving of their wins this weekend. Things were, I'll say, drama free in a lot of ways. Seems like everything went off really well with the tournament, at least from a distance. You nor I obviously were on site, but things seemed to go off pretty well. 14,000 awarded to our MPO winner that we just talked to, 8,000 or 8,500 maybe awarded to Kristen. Both of them seeing an increase in the purse versus last year. Bushnell, which there's a lot to be excited about, and the fact that yet another company like Merrill, who we talked about earlier, is a company that's not primarily disc golf, but then has found their way into disc golf and is supporting us at a very significant level. A course that most of the players and most of the world loved. I mean, there's just a lot of positivity I feel like to take from this weekend overall, and I understand that the signal was frustrating
Mm-hmm.
for many, but there was overall a lot of positivity from the weekend, and the fact that we, as you said, we still have post production coverage that's also available, and hopefully, if that's the fix that people wanted or needed, they could get that too. So. Real quick, somebody says, any idea why Keene fell off their exposure? Yeah, I know exactly why. Unfortunately, one of our major connections, gentleman by the name of David, who used to work at Solomon, where Solomon jumped on board big time with disc golf for a couple of years, sponsored a few players. That same gentleman ended up going to work for Keene, and he worked there for a number of years. He pushed, he was our insider. Keene didn't really know about disc golf. He came in, pushed disc golf, Keene into disc golf, and then when he was no longer with the company, then unfortunately their concerted effort toward disc golf fell back. And I think that's going to be the case of a lot of companies. Like the reason we get in somewhere often is because somebody knew somebody,
Mm-hmm.
or somebody's kid or cousin or uncle or brother plays, that then can make decisions at a large scale company, and then we see us getting that integration at some point, and then it's a matter of, does it remain sustained or not. And I guess it depends on we saw the same Adidas and Adidas Outdoors. We've seen the same with some of these other companies, and whether or not it's got some staying power is tough to say once our connection is no longer there. So yeah, Johnny, I'm going to tell you, I don't have a lot more for you. I'm obviously on the road, and I'm excited to be back in Bend for the weekend to give you guys 3 more days. the schedule shows, I hope I'm not spoiling anything. I think the schedule shows that Nate Sexton's going to be in the booth this weekend. It will be back to, like, I'll say, kind of a more normal routine of myself and Valerie in the mornings, and which is early. And in the afternoons, I believe it's scheduled for Nate Doss, Nate Sexton, and myself. And so that's what you're going to see. I think Brian Earhart is, again, scheduled to be on the ground. So that should be exciting as well out there at the disc side of heaven. So that's kind of the weekend preview, if there was one. Got anything else we need to worry about, Johnny, before I let you take over
No,
on your own?
on my own, gosh, I could do a quick after show.
I mean,
I already did one.
You do
I,
you.
I literally did a podcast earlier tonight for Skip Ace because I didn't get a chance. Normally, I like to put them on. I normally like to put them on Mondays, but
begging for that attention.
I really am on Mondays. But with the championship happening this weekend, I didn't get a chance to do a lot of prep work and any research, which I actually do a little bit for Skip Ace. So I pushed it back one day. But so I already did a podcast earlier today. I'm doing this one. I can stick around for a quick after show. It wouldn't be a big deal, and then we can wrap it up and we can kind of move on to Jonesboro, disc side of heaven.
Yeah, beautiful place. You know, there's a sign, and I know it gets pictured every year, and it's deservingly so. There's a sign that basically when you step on or near the tee of hole one, there's a sign that says this is a pro level championship caliber course that's very difficult and demanding. Basically play at your own risk. And there's another course there on site that's much easier, much more your speed. And I'll say that to everyone probably watching, a lot easier. You too, Johnny, especially you. It's easier and plays more your speed. But when you step onto the disc side of heaven, the gold course or whatever it's called, that's it's no joke. And proceed with caution. I'm going to just answer a couple of quick questions before I let you go, Johnny, because I'm seeing them come in. I don't think there's any confirmation at all of Sexton not being with Jomez. I think it's just a matter of what event he's at and where he's at. He wasn't in our booth, but he also wasn't at the event this weekend. And that I feel like he told me of some conflict he must had.
I thought someone had said that he didn't love the W.R. Jackson course, but I don't know how true that is.
Well, he's the only one then.
Yeah.
No, that doesn't sound right. But
it doesn't sound right to me either, but I had seen that posted somewhere. It's still a major.
It's possible. So I'm guessing you're going to see him. I don't know what his schedule looks like.
He's probably hanging out with Isaac's dad.
Well, I'll tell you this. It's not maybe a secret that a course like Jonesboro, which does rely so heavily on big distance, at this stage in his career, he feels, I think, more comfortable being in the booth for the weekend, where it's a lot less strain and stress on his family life for him to drive the 3 hours to join us in the booth, as opposed to go throw 200% power shots on every tee almost out at Jonesboro. I think it's just a matter of hedging his bets for where he's most competitive. And I think that definitely plays into this specific weekend. Future weekends, I think you're going to see him at a lot of the events, and then probably as part of Jomez. So I would assume that would all be the case. Sexton at Coachella. Finally, something smart or funny you said, Disc Down. I appreciate that. I don't think that's the case, but I do appreciate that. All right, Johnny. I'm going to pack up here in my public park before things get weird. The sun's gone down on me. I've got some big landmarks to go find. So
yeah, don't be a creeper hanging out in the park after dark.
No promises. Am I closing our show for you and then you do after show, or what are we doing here? You tell me.
Say that again.
I said, am I closing out the regular show, or am I just logging off, or what are you doing?
Go and close out the show, Terry.
This is see how we do this production right here on site live with you guys all watching. I do seriously want to thank so much to Isaac Robinson. I understand how busy he is. We understand how busy he is. So the fact that he could take a little more time to meet with another media outlet, we very much appreciate and congratulate him and all of the incredible play by so many competitors this weekend. Of course, congratulations to Kristen Tatar, who graciously said she's going to just soak it in throughout this week as well. So congrats to her and all the other top finishing competitors over there. Congrats to the entire PDGA staff and crew. We gave the Spirit Award away earlier on Sunday, but the fact that they're able to pull off this PDGA major at the WR Jackson course, Bushnell being the primary sponsor, just awesome to see, and all of the people running around trying to give you as much coverage as we could during those long days, over 4 days of a major. Hats off to all of the crew on the network, even if it was blurry. Some things are beyond our control in that sense. So for Johnny V, for Isaac, our champion, I'm Terry Miller, the Disc Golf Guy. This has been Smashbox Podcast number 352 or 452, one of those. I don't know. Johnny V will take things away in the after show. We'll see you then when you step inside the Smashbox.
Thank you to our $2 and above patrons. Your name is listed below in the credits. If you are interested in being listed as a producer in the Smashbox TV credits and supporting this and other fine podcasts, please visit patreon.com/SmashboxTV. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Smashbox TV's episode 452 after show. Yes, Terry, go find a malt. Terry's not with us right now. Should I say it like Terry's no longer with us? Terry's no longer with us. No, he dropped off after the primary show and left me to do a nice little short after show. Tim Courts on the board asked if we could talk Aaron Rodgers, and I'd be down to talk that just a little bit. Aaron Rodgers today, or yesterday, I think it was yesterday. Yeah, it was yesterday it was announced. He was traded to the Jets, as everyone predicted, for a boatload of draft picks. Packers and the Jets swapped their first round this year. Packers got their second round. They got like our fifth round or something, and we got next year's second round, which will probably be a first round because he'll play more than 65% of the snaps, blah, blah, blah. Packers are still on the hook for some cash. I think the Packers got the slightly better deal, but we'll see. Because Aaron Rodgers plays best when he plays with a chip on his shoulder. And if there's one thing that I think he's going to want to do, it's play with a chip on his shoulder this year. And it wouldn't shock me if he went out and had close to a career year. It also wouldn't shock me if the Jets somehow found a way to mess it up, because they're kind of the Jets. So we'll see. The Jordan Love era is upon us. Who knows how long it's going to last? If it's 5 years, 1 year, 3 years, 10 years. Can I get greedy and say that I want another phenomenal quarterback? Maybe. I don't know. But either way, I have no ill will against Aaron Rodgers. He was kind of a weirdo in general, but I loved him as my quarterback. And he just didn't fit into the Packers organization anymore. It's a different group than what he was drafted with. They had different visions. And I wish him nothing. I don't wish him the best because I don't want the Jets to do great, but I wish him nothing but health. And you know what? Let him play a couple more years. Maybe he plays another 3 years, 4 years if he's lucky, like Tom Brady. And he'll come back to Green Bay. He'll be put up in our Ring of Fame. He'll retire and get into the Hall of Fame as a Packer. All that great stuff. Yeah, that's Aaron Rodgers. It was a good run. Disc Blaster says, have a drink, settle in. We're not in a hurry. I'm not in a hurry either. It's only 10:30. I am going to drop this podcast. I'll put out on our Patreon feed, as I always do. But I am going to do a little bit of research. I might wait on the regular feed, the one that goes out to the public. I might push that until like noon tomorrow because maybe I can find NVIDIA makes a background cleaner, an automatic background cleaner. So I might be able to take Terry's audio, pull it out so it's just his channel, run it against that, clean up all the background audio, and then feed it back in. We'll see. I might, I don't know. Because I do have like an RTX 2070 card in here, and that's what you need for the special plugin. The VST3 plugin is what it's called. I don't know. Maybe I'll give that a shot. Disc Blaster wants to talk about Terry's sleep/work schedule. It's very screwed up. Terry's a night owl. He likes to work from like 8 p.m. until 3 to 4 a.m. and then he sleeps until 10 or 11. That's just what he does. Not only does that give him more time with his family during the day, but he's just always been a night owl. As long as I've known him, he's been a night owl. Spock Hazer says, getting back to the stream issues, I don't want the solution to be putting all the tour stops on wide open courses. Disc golf belongs in the woods. I agree with you, Spock Hazer. I think that disc golf does belong in the woods. A portion of it. I don't want to see all of it in the woods because, as I said, I really enjoy different styles of courses. Going to Jonesboro here, it's not in the woods. Wide open fairways. You just have to kind of put yourself in a position for your second shot. You can't be left, you can't be right. Either one will kind of mess up your approach shot at this course, at Disc Side of Heaven. I like to see a variety. The Glendevere course, the DD courses, WR Jackson, Maple Hill, they're all unique, and I really like them. So while I would never get rid of the wide open courses, because I think that having a cannon is a skill that I want to see elevated at certain times. It can't be that way all the time. So I agree with you. We shouldn't be all in the woods. But I don't know what we're doing as far as cell signal goes. Hopefully we can find courses that are still relatively wooded, but have decent cell towers. Now, the thing with Appling, Georgia, is that it's a town of 6,000 people. They more or less have one, maybe two cell towers in that whole city. And so when and the IDGC is kind of out a little bit away in the middle of nowhere. So most places like Verizon and AT&T, everyone talks about like a cell on wheels. They won't talk to you for less than 20,000 people. That's kind of minimum. So that's why we can't get those. wiring the courses, you're talking about high-grade fiber connections that you need to run a couple miles, I'd say a minimum of 1.5 miles to 2 miles of fiber cabling, thick fiber with a good hefty outer shell on it, which is extremely expensive. Someone had said on Reddit that if you were to properly do it and bury it in conduit, you're talking $15, maybe $20 a foot. And IDGC can't do that anyway because that land is owned, I believe, by the Army Corps of Engineers, is what I recall hearing. So they would have to work and fight for that. Starlink, even if you could put 15 Starlinks out there, you need to then power them on like one of those big jackeries or the DC powered thing. So that you're talking every day having to pick those up, charge them, move them back out, put a repeater out there that only goes like, at most probably 100 feet, 150 feet from where they are. And then you worry about where do you put those? You put those kind of off in the woods a little bit so players don't hit them. Inevitably, someone's going to hit them. And on top of that, Starlink needs a straight line of sight to the satellite. So all those in the middle of the woods is not a place you want to try to put a satellite dish. You would probably need to then put it on a pole up above the trees. And now you're talking about erecting poles. I said erecting. Erecting poles at the course for a satellite. It's a lot of this stuff has been thought through, and I know, and I'm not here to make excuses for the Pro Tour because ultimately it's their product. They need to set expectations properly for events that are going to have mediocre cell coverage. And I think they've been good about that in the past, and this one kind of bit them. I mean, everyone knew the cell signal was kind of mediocre. I just don't know if it was, we're growing so fast that there's so many people that don't even remember last year. They don't remember. Go back and watch the live from last year. It's not a heck of a lot better. And then you add extra people. We're getting more spectators. It's very difficult. And I don't envy their position. So we'll get there. We will get there. It just takes time. 5G travels it's a very, very small distance wavelength. So even if you put a 5G repeater at IDGC at the building, it's probably not making it past hole 2. You would need multiple ones of those. There are solutions that will maybe come in the next couple of years, but those are still out of the way. So, I mean, that's just kind of what we have. And so we deal with it. I know it sucked. It sucked more for MPO, I felt, because I think there were more spectators. I watched the FPO coverage, and while it wasn't ideal, I didn't think it was game breaking. I wasn't so upset that I couldn't watch it. And I think MPO, again, because of the extra spectators, probably was a little much. And the one thing that I thought was really funny was people were like, God, how come UDisc isn't updating? What's going on with UDisc? Why aren't these volunteers, they get to hole 12 or 13 and they're not updating the scores? The cell signal was so bad that even a little tiny app wasn't working. But people were giving us a hard time for not being able to get out video, 30 frames per second video. Whatever. I'm glad I don't have to worry about a lot of that stuff anymore. I like to help out. We'll see. What else do we want to talk about? Now, there's a joke, I think we've said this before, about the Masters course, that it's a golf, that literally it's a fiber network with a golf course put on top of it. That's the Masters. That you could go on, that they've got so much fiber and conduit and stuff run underneath of that course, and they can because it doesn't freeze. You get to like a Maple Hill, and trying to run conduit Maple Hill, that would have to be buried 2 to 3 feet deep That's not just like trenching out 6 inches, 8 inches, and burying it. You have to get below the frost line. That would be miserable. Ugh. I guess I've never really thought of that before, except for, for wiring a course. Someplace like Smugs, which has bad cell signal in spots. Maple Hill, where you get down on 11, and we can kind of long lens it from the edge of the hill. But we all know when you get down there, the cell signal stinks. Down on 11's basket, 12's tee, until you get to like 13. Even 13 isn't great. It's not until you get to 14 that things really clear up. I don't know. That would be miserable. So let's talk about something else, because we don't need to talk about the cell signal anymore. We're over that. Jonesboro coming up. Terry and I talked about that. I talk about the Starship test launch. Arguably a success for SpaceX. It lifted off, and then what would they call it? Something like rapid disassembly. It blew up. And their goal was to get off the launch pad, and they did that. So hopefully there's no issues with the wreckage. I read something about there could be some potential materials or carcinogens or something in the crash. I don't know. It was just an article I read. But I mean, 5 years ago, go look at SpaceX, and they were having explosions all the time because that's how they learned. Look at when they tried to land those rockets the first few times, and it just didn't work out. SpaceX expects some kabooms and explosions, and good for them. They can afford it. I'm just happy I have a job this week as a podcaster, because if you're paying attention to the media landscape, there's media people getting let go left and right. I'm no Don Lemon or Tucker Carlson. I'm glad I have an independent thing. I just fired Terry. He's not even here anymore. Gone. They'll find a place to land. Ricky still out, as well as Paige Pierce this weekend at Jonesboro. Hopefully Ricky is. I saw Ricky post in Florida that he was working, doing some like a disc signing at a store of some sort. He did a sit down with a some sort of media. I think it was maybe a news article or a magazine article about Lyme's disease. And it was like a muscle fitness and health and how he's going about what he's doing. So that's really, for being an unfortunate subject, that's good exposure for disc golf. Brixton says, I heard Terry signed his cards. I heard he did too. I spent last week, I want to say Tuesday or Wednesday. It must have been Wednesday. Signing all my Brixton cards. And then I handed them. I was very careful. Did I say this on the podcast? How nervous I was about signing the cards? Because there were like packages of cards, and I signed them in different markers. There was an ultra fine black, there was just a fine black, and then there was a gold. And so at first I want to make sure I didn't screw them all up. There was really clear instructions. But then the last thing I want to do is smear them either. So I would sign one and set it down on my table, signed another one, set it down next to it. And I had there were sets of like 25. So I had them all laid out and let them, by the time I got to the last one, I waited a couple minutes and then I picked them all up very carefully, slid them back in the sleeve so they were marked because Terry had to sign them as well. And the ones I was really nervous about was the gold marker, because the gold marker, it's a little thicker marker and it's schmeary. Like it's just, I don't know what it is about different colored Sharpies that sometimes some of them are a little more oily, maybe is the word to put it, a little more watery than the black. But that's how the gold was. So I was real careful with the gold. And at one point, like the very first black marker I picked up, I was signing, doing like Johnny V on them and moving them and moving them. And I went to put it down, and my daughter comes running into the kitchen where I was signing on the kitchen table. And it kind of caught out of the corner of my eye, and I was about an inch and a half away from the thing. And she pushed in a chair that was just a little bit pushed out, and like jarred the whole table. And I like whipped up the marker because I thought I was just going to like streak one. And so thankfully I didn't. So if there's any bad things, it's not my fault. I didn't do it. But it was kind of nerve-wracking to sign the disc. It was really cool. I took some pictures, sent them to some of my friends and high school friends. I said, hey, look at this. This is really awesome being recognized and for the contributions to the sport and whatnot. And, you know, at the risk of being mocked from my friends, because we all have friends that kind of joke about probably disc golf, especially someone who's been in it as long as I have. Some of the friends from high school actually introduced me to the sport, and they still make fun of me for it. But, you know, that's I don't blame them. I make fun of them for a lot of other things. That's what friends do. But yeah, I was very close to smearing one, and I'm glad I didn't. I nicely got them all signed, put back together, handed them off to Terry so he could bring them, because there was some of them that had Terry and Nate on them. I'm not spoiling anything. And so he had to bring them, either send them over to Bend, but he ended up bringing them to Bend so they could both sign them this week, whatnot. So I think most of them are signed, probably out the door, Brixton, anything that had Terry or Doss on it. So we're good. Other than that, it's been an okay week. Not the best. On Sunday, my wife went outside to her car and saw her Jeep Grand Cherokee. Her front passenger tire was flat. So I was like, ugh. So Sunday morning before the broadcast, I went outside and and it was, our driveway is kind of right up against like a grass slope where it slopes up a little bit. So I put the jack under right where I'm supposed to. There's a nice arrow. I'm not an auto guy, but I can kind of get through it. But then it was a pain in the ass to try to jack up the car with the jack that I have, or the one that came with the car, because of the slope of the grass. So it was like a lot of like little bitty turns. So I sat there on my hands and knees in the wet grass, because it was the morning, cranking up a Jeep Grand Cherokee high enough so I could pop the tire off, put the spare, which thankfully it's a full-size spare, popped it on, tightened it all up. It took me, you know, I'm not joining any F1 or NASCAR races with my speed, I'll tell you that much. But thankfully, we brought it in today, and they were able to patch the tire. So patch it, and then I think my wife got like some new windshield wipers. Cost us like $100. Not a car guy. Don't like cars. So there was that on Sunday. And then on Monday, my daughter was walking to school, got to the school, and there's a sidewalk, and I know right where it is at the school, where it's just a little bit off. But, you know, they're actually building a new school that'll be done when she is in 8th grade. She's in 5th grade right now. And so she was walking on the sidewalk that was a little misleveled. And for those of you who don't know, my daughter has special needs. She doesn't see very well. It's almost like she has tunnel vision. So when she walks, you know, put your hands up, almost like you're looking through a bush now, and that's how she sees. So we always have to make sure things are off the floor. I can't count the number of times she's walked into the open dishwasher where it's the door is down. And I'm always afraid she's going to fall on it and break it. So we're constantly making sure things aren't on the ground for her. And because of that, she drags her feet to make sure she knows where she's going. It's a lot of feel. Well, of course, she caught her toe on it. Boom, fell down, face first, smashed her face, big old bloody lip, and knocked her 2 front teeth loose. They didn't come out, thankfully, but they were a little loose. So she was full of blood and whatnot. And I got that call at like 8 a.m. on Monday morning. And then by Monday afternoon, got her into the dentist. Now she's got like these front braces, just enough to keep her front teeth from wiggling. And she hates them. You know, being special needs, she likes to pick at things too. Like if she has a loose string, or when her normal teeth come loose, she likes to wiggle them until they come out. So having to fight her to not wiggle her teeth so they come out was a fight as well. What a pain in the butt. So it's been a rough day. Today was a rough day for her. First day with like braces. Her mouth is still a little sore. She's trying to brush her teeth and she's drooling all over herself because she's not used to her braces. And yeah, so that was my last 2 or 3 days dealing with and teeth bother me. I'm good with most gross things, you know, bodily fluids. With having kids, you get used to it. You know, puke, all that other stuff. Teeth and eyeballs. I wear glasses because I can't wear contacts. I can't put something in my eye. I feel weird about it. And whenever my kids get loose teeth, it's something I let my wife deal with. It grosses me out. Teeth aren't my thing. So when she came up to me before Monday morning, before she got her braces on, and she was like showing me her teeth that are like, their front teeth are still a little bloody, and she wants to wiggle them. She's like, Dad, they're wiggling. I'm like, don't. And I don't want to see it. Go away. It wasn't my finest hour. That's for sure. But we're very, very thankful that it was just a, you know, some temporary braces. She'll get them checked out in about 2 to 3 weeks, make sure that they'll do x-rays, make sure that everything is fine, and hopefully that they reconnect and get their roots or whatever, or the tendons aren't stretched out anymore, or whatever the hell is in there. I don't even know. My wife took her to the dentist. So, and yes, the Bucks did lose, even with Giannis. Fourth quarter, it sucked. I didn't watch it, but now they would need to win 3 in a row, or it's going to be a very miserable offseason. Giannis getting hurt really sucked for 2 games, even though they won one of them. I think it set us back, but we'll see. We will see. Brewers are doing really well. I want to get to a Brewer game soon. Ray says, I work with adults with special needs, Johnny. I admire how much dedication and selflessness the families have. You guys rock. I'm blessed for many, many, many reasons. One of them is my wife, who went to school for, originally she went to college for art. She got an art degree. Useless. And then she wanted to be an art teacher, so she went back to school, got her teaching degree. And while she was there getting her teaching degree, she minored or second majored in special education. This was 20 years ago, more than that, 25 years ago practically. So she had and then she went back, she got her special ed degree. She ended up teaching special ed, went back and got her master's degree in it. So she's got a master's degree in special education. Years later, obviously, we have our daughter who had an encephalocele, and my daughter was born with a hole in her skull. For those of you that maybe are new viewers, I didn't know that. I've talked about this before. Whole long thing. I can show you a lot of gross pictures that don't even gross me out. You know, I think maybe that's why. But so she has all sorts of special needs. But now my wife ends up she works for a company called Gigi's Playhouse, which is an achievement center for people with Down syndrome. She is the site manager, and it's a nonprofit. They don't charge for any classes. They do tons of classes every week for these people, anyone from birth all the way up to, you know, mid to late 20s. So I'm very lucky that I have my wife, who is very versed in everything special education, special needs. She is often asked by many other parents to go to the school meetings so that she can advocate and stuff like that. She was the state birth to 3 president or something like that. I don't know, Governor Scott Walker at the time appointed this Birth to Three program, and she was put on as the head of it. So she did that for like a year or two before the whole thing wasn't run very well, so she kind of stepped away from that. So I am lucky that I have my wife to take care of most of that stuff, because I would probably be a little lost without her. So don't let her hear. I don't think she's upstairs, so she can't hear me say that. Otherwise, she'll hold it over my head. But yeah, I get to work with and deal with a lot of families with special needs through my wife. I do a lot of helping out at the Gigi's Playhouse and stuff, and the families are all phenomenal. Very, very, very nice people. What else do we want to talk about? Where do you guys think Dylan Cease will be playing at the end of the season? No way he doesn't get traded off of this awful White Sox squad. Would be great if he came to the Brewers. I'd be pumped for that. Send him up north. Let's go. Let's get him on the Brew Crew. That would be pretty great. That would be. I'd invite him disc golfing with me. We'd go out and maybe hit. I bet you he probably can't. Honestly, I was thinking that a couple days ago about if he can get out and play on his off days, but I doubt he probably just wants to rest his arm. Probably doesn't get hardly any golf in during the season. I know he can go. He did it during the All-Star break, but that was when he was not on the All-Star team. Now that he is on the All-Star team, he probably doesn't get a chance to go at all. Is there anything else we want to talk about before we wrap this up tonight? I don't have a heck of a lot left in me tonight. So it's 11 o'clock. Kind of see where the night takes us. I am working on a store for Smashbox. Just through one of those. It's not Teespring, but it's something similar to that, where you can kind of upload your logo, put it on a couple items. If people want to purchase it, they can. If it's like a $15 t-shirt, we probably get 50 cents or a buck, who knows. And that'll hopefully be linked to the YouTube page. I actually started that again today. So if you're interested in Smashbox gear, hopefully like shirts and sweatshirts and mugs, maybe socks, stickers, it'll be available to you soon. I don't expect a lot of sales, but maybe a few. Doesn't hurt. People ask us. Yes, Bachhauser, Smash Socks. Finally, we've done Smash Socks before. We gave we ordered some through Miles, had a whole bunch of them done, and I think Terry used them as a players pack item. Carney Schill, you want a Smashbox bath towel? I can put that on. Definitely. Why not? Maybe with Terry and I's face on it. You can be drying yourself off with our face. That wouldn't be weird or creepy at all. Ray asks, how was Sunny Day Real Estate? Ooh, awesome. Sunny Day Real Estate is one of my favorite bands. They are about 30 years old. They were one of the very early Seattle bands back from the early 90s. Very early signed to the Sub Pop label as well. And they were just phenomenal. To put it in perspective, their first lineup 30 years ago, two of the guys ended up getting poached from Sunny Day Real Estate and going to create the Foo Fighters. So William Goldsmith, the drummer, and Nate Mendel, the bass player. Crap, I can't remember. Whatever Nate plays. Ended up forming the Foo Fighters with Dave Grohl. So the original drummer was from Sunny Day Real Estate, and I think the original guitar player. I think he's a guitar player. And then eventually the drummer didn't want anything really to do with Foo Fighters. I don't know if it was a commitment issue or what. So he left. He came back to Sunny Day Real Estate. Nate Mendel, who is now on the Foo Fighters still, took a brief hiatus from the Foo Fighters to come back to Sunny Day Real Estate for a few years, but now he's back with Foo Fighters, and so it's a slightly different lineup. It's 3 of the 4 original guys, but that's the pedigree of this band of Sunny Day Real Estate. Their first album had half the Foo Fighters, so, and it's one of my favorite bands, and it was phenomenal. I went there all by myself. I saw 2 guys I knew from high school who also were heavily into the band, which probably is where I maybe heard of them first. I don't recall where I first heard of them, but ran into them, chatted with them for a bit. It was at the Pabst Theater, which is this gorgeous theater in Milwaukee. It's a smaller venue, seats probably 1,000 people, maybe not even. Mostly sold out show. I think there was some tickets available. Bought myself a t-shirt because I need more t-shirts, which I don't. I have so many different band shirts and just different random t-shirts, but I can't help myself. If I go to a concert, I almost always buy a concert t-shirt. Helps promote the band, helps give them money, and I'm a sucker for them. Is Rising Tide my favorite album? No, it's Diary. Honestly, it's Diary, then How It Feels to Be Something On, then The Rising Tide, and then the Pink album. I'm hoping they're doing another album. There's been rumors that they have something kind of off to the side that's been there for 10 years, but no one's ever talked about it. The last time I saw them before a couple days ago was about 10 years ago in Chicago when Sensefield opened up for them. It was a phenomenal show as well. But I can't go wrong with Diary. Just the best. And then How It Feels to Be Something On. That one hits hard. Love it. But again, I'm old school. I mean that was original back in my day, and now it's not. Ray says, if we want to keep Johnny up later for an after show, get him talking about music. I'm a sucker for music, man. I went to the show by myself. I offered a buddy of mine and said, hey, if you want to go, I'm going. I've got no one else to go with. And he didn't want to go. So I don't blame him. He knew nothing of the band. The opening band was a band I've heard of but didn't really ever get into, called the Appleseed Cast. They were pretty good. It's a concert, so the sound is a little muffled. The vocals, at least. But they sounded pretty good. I should probably listen to them because they're right around that era. Hayden Henry says, listen to Diary on the way to the IDGC one day last week. It's so good. It is so good. I saw Jeremy Enoch, the lead singer, do a solo show 6 years ago here in town at Shank Hall, which is famous because if you watch This Is Spinal Tap, that's where there's a big thing about Shank Hall and how it kind of came in Milwaukee. It's fun. Check out Level Owl 1 and 2 from the Appleseed Cast. I will. Somebody just posted. Clearly, Facebook knows me because I posted the Sunny Day Real Estate picture there. So for the last week, I've been getting nothing but, hey, remember these 90s alt emo bands? And someone had made a post of their CD list of all the, indie alt emo bands from the, early 90s and 2000s. There's Diary on there. There's Braid, Frame, and Canvas, Mineral, and Serenading. There's an Appleseed Cast in there. There's a couple other, I think Jawbreaker was in there. But just a ton of great bands, all of which I have CDs in boxes somewhere. I really want to get them out at some point, but there's no need to. So, Spock Hauser says, I'm afraid of crowds, so I don't do concerts. I was able to manage the fear with MDMA at some of the shows. That's interesting. I'm not sure. I don't know if I would categorize myself as an extrovert. I like being around people, but when I do get around a lot of people, it's almost a little too much for me. Not that I get or anything. It's just I get to be okay, this is good. I'm good right now. I don't need to talk to anybody else. I like being around people, but maybe not necessarily always talking to them. So there's a right amount of people. Concerts don't bother me. I'm looking forward to Summerfest this year. My wife and I are going to go see Tegan and Sarah on our anniversary. They happen to be playing on our anniversary date. So, Letters to Voltaire says, "Damn, JVD, I didn't know you were such a math rock post-punk fan." Same here. Yeah, it's Midwest emo. Honestly, that's what I grew up. Well, grow up out of college. That's what it all was. Everything from Get Up Kids to Alkaline Trio, all those bands that were here in the Midwest that just toured Milwaukee, Madison, Chicago, all of them. I've seen them all at one point or another. Bands that have come and gone. They're all right in my wheelhouse. So it's funny. I went from early '90s alt rock like Sunny Day Real Estate and then other Seattle bands to kind of like the mid to late '90s was a little bit more ska, a little bit of and punk, a lot of punk music, honestly. Bands like No Use for a Name, Face to Face, the whole Fat Records collection. And then moving into the early 2000s, late 90s was all indie rock. Navel gazing, hoodie wearing, which I still have and I still love, indie rock. Everything, I literally saw Jimmy Eat World open for Sensefield, which then opened for the Promise Ring. And the Promise Ring are here from Milwaukee, one of my favorite bands. But it's all in my blood. It's all that Midwest stuff. Reggie in the Full Effect. Yep. Saw them. Never saw Glassjaw. I got to see Jawbox, which I think is maybe my favorite band, last year. 2 years ago when they did a reunion. I really literally got into them as they broke up, and then they came back and I got to see them. The Dismemberment Plan, of course, but they're East Coast. I've seen them so many times when they toured. It was funny knowing that Steve Dodge somehow at one point knew the guitar player, the bass player actually, Eric Axelson, from Dismemberment Plan. And they've got a new band coming out called Milliseconds, which I'm excited to hear when they finally release some album stuff. They haven't released anything in a long time. All right. It's time to call this. Yeah, a lot of these bands are a little bit beyond me. The Rest of My Chemistry. Oh, that's by Interpol. Okay. Seven Dust is a little much. I saw My Chemical Romance open for a band called Face to Face in Chicago, and which is now, no one knows, not nobody, but very few people know Face to Face, even though they're kind of an iconic West Coast punk band. But everybody knows My Chemical Romance, and I'll tell you, it was an awful show. The My Chemical Romance was horrible. They were like right after they kind of started to hit it big. And the lights were on, and the lead singer was in like this white face paint, and it's like very, black eyeliner emo kind of stuff. Not like the indie emo stuff that originally came out. It had moved much more to kind of what everybody knows as emo these days. And I remember sitting there watching this guy that nobody's paying attention to just dance around on the stage and scream and sing, and the lights are on. Nobody's paying attention. It was the funniest thing to me. Just kind of thinking like, dude, this isn't your show. Nobody's here to see them. Everyone was there to see the band, the punk band. But it's funny. I got a kick out of that. That was one of those, like, they died on stage where you don't want to see it, but you're watching them and going, this isn't working for you. You need the lights down, but the lights were like, I'd say at 75% at the Metro. And this guy, like, there's like barely any of like their smoke kind of coming off, and they were a young band at the time. I think they just released their first big album that became big. So so I can say I saw them live. It was as bad as the show as it was. I never saw Sponge. That was I wasn't seeing bands back then. And Sean says he grew up with Face to Face, Thrice, Strung Out, NoFX, Pennywise, No Use for a Name out in SoCal. I wish I got to see No Use for a Name. I've seen Face to Face. I bet you I've seen Face to Face 15 times. It was actually the very first concert I chose to go to when I was 17 or 18. Drove from Appleton to Green Bay, which is about a 40-minute drive, to see them in this tiny little club that probably fit 150 people, and I bet you they had 200 in there because it was packed and it was so hot. It was like a summer night. That place had to be 110 degrees, and it was, I don't know if I've ever sweat so much in my life, other than maybe the week in Houston for Worlds, but that night was one of the very first ones. I saw Sweep the Leg Johnny. Letters Voltaire says, I got to check out Sweep the Leg Johnny. I saw them live. They played with, I think they opened for the Alkaline Trio here in Milwaukee at the basement of the Rave. Them and one other band, I think out of Ohio. Trying to think of who it was, but I'm pretty sure I saw. In fact, I know I saw Sweep the Leg Johnny. Yeah, Ray says, I love how the music talk brings out all the lurkers in the chat. Yeah, we got lurkers out there, and you start poking the right music. Music brings everybody together. I mean, who doesn't love it? Your first concert was the Violent Femmes, Carney Schill says, in Arizona. That's awesome. The Violent Femmes here from Milwaukee just celebrated the 40th anniversary of their first album, the one that everyone knows with the girl in the window, and it's I've listened to that thing. The funny thing is, my wife owns it. I don't own it. But in high school, everybody owned it. Every friend had it except for me. So I've probably listened to that album a couple hundred times. We played a lot in high school. Dustin Moreau on the board says his first concert was Rush, the Snakes and Arrows tour. Huh. I'm not a Rush guy. My uncle is a huge Rush fan, but it never got me. It was never my thing. But it's good to see you, Dust. Spock says the Crow soundtrack was his exposure to the Violent Femmes. Yeah, I will say there's two albums that I think are the greatest soundtracks of my generation, my age. The Crow and Singles, both of those. I think we've talked about this before. There's a few other good ones. There's a few other really good ones. The Big Chill is a really good soundtrack, but that's like, and Forrest Gump is a great soundtrack, but those are just like popular songs from that time era put into one soundtrack. And The Big Chill is kind of that way too. So that's why I put those together. They're great soundtracks, but if you can pick the best songs, but The Crow, phenomenal. What other one? I had the not the soundtrack. I did have the soundtrack to The Crow, but I had the score to The Crow as well. I used to, I sound like some creepy, like dark emo kid, but I would put that on for bed. I love it, like classical music, basically. I'd sit and listen to that for hours. Batman Forever ain't bad. I'd have to look at who's on that. Space Jam. No, not my thing. Spawn soundtrack was really good. Yeah. Was it Justice Night? Is that what it's called? Justice Night? Where a bunch of bands, kind of a rock band and a rap band, got together and created a song. It is, yeah, Judgment Night. Okay, perfect. That's a pretty good soundtrack as well. I'm not gonna lie. But The Crow and Singles, those are just awesome. Phenomenal albums. Ray asks, the best superhero movie ever. You could say the very first Superman movie from 78. Otherwise, I love the first Captain America movie. Or Endgame. I mean, Endgame is so good. All right, you can't keep me here by talking about music. I mean, you literally could, but you shouldn't. Trent Reznor does have some of the best scores. He is phenomenal. I think he did the social, the Facebook one, the social whatever. I never watched it, but anyway, I want to thank everyone who has sat and chatted with me tonight. If you're interested in listening to me talk, I don't talk much on this other podcast. I do the Skip Ace podcast where I kind of make a prediction from the upcoming event and I review the predictions that I made. My Champions Cup predictions were not good. Made some bad calls, but I think my Jonesboro ones are going to be good. And lately I've been starting it with a song. Every song, depending on, trying to match it to the upcoming event. And for Georgia, for the Champions Cup, I did REM because they're from Athens, Georgia. REM's a phenomenal. What's the Frequency, Kenneth is one of my favorite songs, as well as Night Swimming. Both of those REM. REM is such an underrated band. Honestly, I just, you don't hear too much about them, and they were so good. But I'm not going to get more into music talk. But this week for Jonesboro, it's in Arkansas, so I was looking for an Arkansas band. From my perspective, the only good artist that I like at all, and I wouldn't even call myself a big fan, is Johnny Cash from Arkansas. And I didn't want to do that. So instead, I picked something from my youth, and I went with, because the chorus is obviously called The Disc Side of Heaven. So I went with Warrant, Heaven. Heaven isn't too far away. That's what the podcast, that's what the Smashbox podcast leads into, is the chorus from Warrant. Because, I mean, I was born in 1977, so I went through the hair metal at one point. I had a mullet. You know, I was an 80s kid. So. Ray says I should have used a Kevin Jones track. I don't have any Kevin Jones tracks. But if I did, I don't know if anyone would really notice. Then again, there's only about 100 people that listen to the podcast. So it's keeping it low key. Oh, Letters, you're killing me. My favorite Jimmy Eat World album. Clarity. It's got to be Clarity. Static Prevails is really good. And I love, there's the songs Claire off Static Prevails, as well as Episode 4 is really good, the song Episode 4, and Robot Factory. Just, there might be 3 of the best songs that Jimmy Eat World's put out. But overall, Clarity. I started listening to Jimmy Eat World right after Static Prevails came out. The first album I got of theirs was actually an EP, the Roller Queen EP. I've seen Jimmy Eat World 15 times as well. Every time they're in town, I go. So, yeah, that's... You're killing me. Killing me, Letters to Voltaire. That's a tough one, because Jimmy Eat World is up there with my favorite bands. They're so good. I think they're coming to town as well here in Milwaukee. I don't know when. I have to take a look. See if they're still coming. So... How about you, Letters of Voltaire? What's your favorite one? What's your favorite Jimmy Eat World album? I mean, I'm not going to lie. Futures is phenomenal. Bleed American, great. Their first 4 albums are maybe the 4. Like, if you took 4 albums in a row from any band ever, for me, that's probably my favorite. Like, if from front to back, I could listen to from Static Prevails all the way through Futures without an issue. Every one of those is great for me. So he says, sorry, we listen to all the same music. I know. We would make a great car trip. If we ever need to go to a disc golf tournament, and just remind me, I'll pick you up. We'll crank the music, because I'll say this, going to tournaments with Terry and, you know, growing up and all the buddies I did, none of them listened to my music. I went to concerts by myself. All these concerts, I would buy tickets and I would go by myself, or if I had a girlfriend at the time, I'd take her. So whenever I had to drive for disc golf tournaments, which we would take turns, it was always my music, and nobody wanted to listen to my music. Nobody wanted to listen to my music because they had no clue what it was. They didn't know any of the songs. Nobody's singing along. It's like, oh, great, cool. We're happy John's driving, but he also gets to pick the music. So. Oh, Tim Court says Dandy Warhols. I'm not a big, I don't know a lot about the Dandy Warhols, but I do know that they did the lead song to the Veronica Mars series, and my wife and I loved the Veronica Mars series, so we'd always listen to the song off of that, and it's great. It's freaking great. I got a lot of useless music knowledge. Not much I can do about that. I never got into LCD sound system either. But okay. Get me off of this show. For everybody who joined us on the board tonight, I appreciate. We'll talk music another night. Because, I love to talk. There's a lot of different, there's a few different podcasts I listen to. There's one, Washed Up Emo is a good podcast. It interviews some of those guys on the, that old area. So, yeah. I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. I am John Van Derzen, and I hope you guys have yourselves a wonderful night. Good night.